Tune into the final take with MK Mariner every Saturday on the Alcamba Times and experience extensive conversations on a variety of topics, including national and international headlines, breaking issues, and major developments in politics, business, innovation, science, and sports, along with inspiring stories and expert analysis to provide a comprehensive understanding of the news.
Hello and warm welcome to yet another exciting edition of the Final Take with me, Seni Mariner. In the studio today, I have another special guest, Mr. Kemo Fati, a prominent youth environmentalist and also a youth leader in the Gambia. Kemo has announced his intention to contest for the presidential elections in 2026, which is just at the corner. But, you know, many people know Kemo as a very instrumental conservationist, someone who has been fighting to bring environmental rights issues in the country. So, Kemo, welcome to the Final Take with me, Seni Marina.
Thank you very much, Seni, for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Kemo, once again, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I understand that today is your mother's special event in Banjul. Congratulations to her for successfully completing one of the key pillars of Islam, that's Hajj. Our warmest congratulations to your mom. Thank you once again for joining us. For those tuning in, as I said, this is the final take with me, Seni Marina. Within our next 1 hour, we'll talk about a lot of issues from environmental protection to young people, youth political participation, because young people have, you know, taken the lead in demanding accountability, you know, in the country, something that has been unheard many years ago, even though in 2016 revolution, young people were at the forefront. But, you know, many want to, you know, be leaders right now because the country is in crisis. So, Kemo, thank you so much for joining me. So, can you briefly introduce yourself to my audience and share what drives your passion for environmental conservation and youth empowerment in the Gambia?
Thank you very much, Seni, for this for putting this conversation together. I think it is time that we recognize that, you know, youth participation in politics is not just going to end in rhetorics, but we are out taking the baton in our own hands. We are rising to demand the future that we want. And for Kemo, you know, definitely speaking, my passion is fueled by the irregular migration that have happened over time. You know, when I was a young boy, I used to see my cousins who have gone to Barkway. By then, it wasn't Lampedusa. It used to be the Spanish island of Melilla, you know, where people will walk through the Sahara and they have to skip a razor wire fence that is equipped with anti-climb grids, sensors, you know. So you will see my brothers lying on this fence that is costing 33 million euros. So I could imagine what 33 million euros could have done for our young people, but rather it is spent building a fence just to keep us out. So this really fueled an anger in me that I started working with an organization called Operation No Backway to Europe, which was founded by the current National Assembly member for Central Badibu. Is it Central Badibu? Yes, Upper Badibu rather, in Sali, Kenya, Suleiman Saho. And Suleiman has really been one of the guys that have inspired me to start talking about this migration. But in this process, you know, when you meet young people, they'll tell you, yo, Kemo, don't be hypocritical. What are we going to do if we don't go to Europe? You can see that our great-grandparents were farmers, our grandparents are farmers, and, you know, our parents are still farmers, but yet still you can see how hard life is getting. And farming is no more than casino gambling. So what are we going to do when €1 is equivalent of $50, say? And of course, back in the days, my dream has always been to become the Wolf of Wall Street. I mean, if you know Kemo in Nusrat High School, everybody will tell you that Kemo is all about the Benji. Kemo doesn't care about anything but, completing his accounting degree, becoming a financial analyst, and, just become a broker or a jobber in the stock markets. But then, with these climate impacts that we are talking about, my mother, who's currently in the village right now doing this celebration, used to get all the rice that we used to have. Our rice fields were very fertile. We didn't have salt intrusion. But in a span of 7 years from when I was, farming, school. School, I need to buy rice. Kodoki na ngamano. Sanka for sa lafta na kodo mutalambul. Nga fo ende kata America. Mbulanga na kodo ma. Wako no na money fenko sign kole dutaje. This was how I kind of got, the first-hand impacts of climate change. And my brother, being so helpful, he was like, Kemo, I think it's best that, I go to Europe. Because if I stay here, you stay here, there's more pressure on the family. So when this guy went to Europe, he was lost in the desert for far too long. And this was where the transformation of Kemo came in. I realized that money wasn't everything, but rather it brought in a human approach inside me to understand that, well, it's only when the last tree has been cut, the last river is poisoned, then we realize that we cannot eat money. So I realized that humanity must rethink its survival mode. And this is how, I began to kind of get into advocacy on climate change and how to better the livelihoods of people. It was just that twitch that affected my family that grew so personal that I felt like we ought to do something about this. And, after that, now I realized that after 8 years or 9 years of working on this crisis, which is the climate crisis, I came to realize that some of the people that we have entrusted with this responsibility are not people really who go to bed thinking about how to solve this problem. Rather, they are there to fill the blanks of this position that they are manning, which in turn our livelihoods are depending on. So when I had some push and pull with, some of these authorities, then I realized that, well, you know what? I think these systemic problems will continue until and unless we do something about it. So my candidacy was just merely a spark. It wasn't necessary to say Kemo is going to go to office, but it's rather to give a wake-up call to the young people to say, hey, we cannot continue to watch our country to burn in this slow pace, which of course people are not seeing. So this is what led to me declaring my candidacy this past 1st of January. So basically that has been my story, and definitely for me it's not about political office, but it's about putting the policies that the country have really kind of put in place to help solve our problems. I think they are just gathering dust. So it's a matter of just operationalizing these policies. We have laws that are protecting our environment and all of whatnot, but we have to put them to use. And this is the place where I come to stand to make a difference.
Absolutely. Kemo, since you declare your intention to run for office of the president, this serve as a wake-up call for a lot of young people in the country, and they got inspired by your action because a lot of young people know you. You have been involved in a lot of youth work, more especially in environmental right protection. So how does your background as a conservationist shape your vision for the country, the Gambia?
Well, I think if we look at the geography, the nature of the Gambia, we are almost divided into two halves by a river. And of course, the Gambia itself, the fragile ecosystem of the Gambia is part of the world's 200 most important inland aquatic biomes. So a place that used to be 100% forest, and more than 50 years ago, almost 50 years ago, we've been warned by our previous leaders about the state of our forest, the state of our soils, and what, climate change could mean for the Gambia. I mean, in the next 100 years, considering the trend of climate change, even our capital city would not exist. So 100 years is not a very long time. This is a time between us and our generation. So we are currently faced with an existential threat. And this threat is not just coming from outside, it's from within. And this is why I seek to actually bring light to this issue. As a matter of fact, the Gambia, as small as we are, we have exported more wood than our landmass could support. So all of these things are crucial things that we need to look at. The way that we are unsustainably plundering our resources in the Gambia is not something that will fit to our grandchildren's needs. And this is why it calls for the protection of those resources that are here for the future, not just today. So it is with the pretext that sustainable development is that which take care of the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generation to fend for themselves. So this is where I stand in as a sustainable development practitioner, is to say, well, these methods that we are employing are unsustainable, and we ought to now look at a way that can work for all of us. And sometimes I personally the state is not doing enough when it comes to protecting these resources that we have. And this is where, what sparked my candidacy, as a matter of fact. Our environment has been continually denuding and degrading for far too long without, proper care and authority over it. So you can realize that sometimes even perpetrators are brought to justice only to have the case to be withdrawn by even the very government that have been voted to ensure that these policies are followed to the ladder. So this makes us, a little bit uneasy as young people, considering the fact that we will be the one to face the consequences of this crisis that is coming in the coming years.
Absolutely. Many thanks, Kemo, for that brilliant expose. Kemo, youths make up a very significant portion of Gambia's population, yet their voices are often underrepresented in politics. What specific barriers do you see preventing young people from engaging in political leadership, and how would you address them as a presidential candidate?
Well, I think that, politics for a long time has been a matter of elderly people participating. And sometimes as young people, we find ourselves, trapped in very funny position. For example, we all understand that when things are hard, people tend to think in survival mode. So this has made our politics a politics of a partisan politics. Like, we are not discussing ideas and ideals. And this is what we seek to change as young people. For far too long, our politics have been on tribal lines, party lines, or even individualistic. People are not voting for ideas. They are voting for people based on sentiments and all of that. So for once, we want to actually, bring something concrete to the table, giving the youth an option to see from amongst themselves, competence and character all, embedded in one, which of course this nation has been lacking for far too long. There has been a crisis of leadership here. Every time we have a good leader. For example, when Jammeh was here, he was a young leader. For the past 10 years that Jammeh has been here, we cannot say that Jammeh did not do very well. Jammeh has done exceptionally well the first 10 years, to a point that every time you put on the TV, all the artists in the Gambia from left, right, and center are praising him. So after that 10 years, that's when he turned around. The ego filled into his heart. So we must not blame young people to say, although it is true that we have seen young people mess up, but now is a time when 70% of everyone in the Gambia is around my age and below. Then this means that, they need to give us a chance to be able to walk towards our own destiny. Youth are not the leaders of tomorrow. It is here and now, because tomorrow we will no longer be youth. For example, everyone at the African Union by 2063 will be dead, because Kemo would be retired by 2063. So where is the accountability? That means we can take decisions knowing fully well that we will not be here to face the hit. So it's like the debt ceiling. We can raise it higher and higher. So long it doesn't collapse on our watch, we are fine. But we will be the ones to pay for those debts, in the future. So at the end of the day, this is the sobering reflection that we are saying, well, young people will no longer be spectators. We will have to inspire these young people to start taking space in the political process, not just for presidency, but this continue all down to the mayoral election and all the way down to the parliamentary election, and as well as the councillorship. We want young people to participate, and most especially even women. We've seen that politics in the Gambia has been an issue of male, and women are underrepresented in our political space. So my candidacy is a spark towards some of, reviving some of these things.
Absolutely. Kemo, I will bring you back, because young people, anywhere, play a very crucial role in shaping the future of that particular country. But when you look at Gambia, it's unfortunate that young people who constitute majority of the population are left behind. So now let's look at this. Even political parties, both in the opposition and the ruling party, they use young people, to canvass vote. But when it comes to, leadership and flag bearer position, young people tend to be ignored. Let's take an example right now in the opposition United Democratic Party. They have been called, right now there is a internal rife, among party militants. Many claiming that the old guards, including the current Secretary General and the party leader Usainu Dabo, should give chance to young young leaders in his party, like Talib Bensouda, Yankuba Dabo, and Mr. Sane in LRR. Do you think it's high time for parties to have that internal democracy so that young people can, take the lead instead of being, backbenchers in politics? What do you think?
Well, I feel that, not that I wouldn't say I think, but what I feel from what I sense when I hear from young people themselves, I really believe that there is so much, there's so much in our hearts that we are not able to see our collective good. We said, and join our diverse people to prove man's brotherhood. I think we always need to have to remind ourselves of the words that linger in our national pledge and our national anthem. Reminding ourselves of this will change even our outlook. Why would two young people have a problem when it comes to leadership position? Is it that we want to be there ourselves, or there is a particular change that we want to see? And of course, in the United Democratic Party, I don't know much about politics, definitely. I'm 100% not a politician, but that shouldn't rule
but you are after declaring your intention, automatically you're gonna be a politician, and then probably your background in environment will also help you. Because these are issues that are interrelated.
But Sini, you would agree with me that there's a statement that says that politicians talk and leaders act. So we don't have to be politicians to be leaders. Before they always say political dunya quality. Politics is about the world. Politics is a matter of life and death. I'm not the Imam Mahdi, but I am declaring to you that a fatwa is that politics is even now about the hereafter. So essentially, these young people or these young people within these parties need to really have a frank conversation. There should be that intergenerational dialogue. We are not just saying put young people there, but if you are leading an institution for over a generation, I think that you should prepare it enough. We have seen, these lapses across not just the United Democratic Party.
It's the issue of succession plan, because it's not only the UDP, but when you look at most of these political parties, it revolves around personality. When you go to the PDOIS, it's all about Halifa Sallah. You come to the UDP, it's all about lawyer Usainu Dabo. And even when you go to the NPP, it's all about President Barrow. So at the end of the day, when these leaders go, at the end of the day, the party is naturally dead because there is no successive plan. What do you think should be done to avoid that, and also to, help young people to take their rightful position? Because most young people don't want to challenge the old guards, one reason or the other. So how do we dismantle this system of?
Don't say we don't want to challenge. As a matter of fact, the last time I declared, I said that my candidacy is in fact against lawyer Usainu Dabo and Adam Barrow. Those two people are participating in the election. I participate. They step down, I step down. So the idea is that, for a long time, every time I have problems, it's like during the Ramadan, if I wake up in the morning, somebody was always like, ito yung mo flow fatalabang. So every time I'm put at the spot to separate these two from fighting. So what I'm saying is that the UDP and the NPP are one and the same. Dabo and Barrow were brothers. In the Gambia here, there's always these problems that rise up. Is it about our country or is it about our own personal gains? So this, for me, is where the problem is supposed to go. Dabo and Barrow were not supposed to fall apart in the first place. Barrow or whoever, whatever gentleman agreement we had with the coalition was not supposed to fail in the first place. So in the end, people have a problem trusting our leaders because of We say one thing and we don't do the other, and we don't do it the way that we say it. And this takes away this trust of the citizenry. I have seen people who I have idolized here, people who have loved so much that I haven't understand them in the political sphere. I wonder, are they paid because of money to say what they say or to do what they do? I can see someone and I know that they are going against their own true values. But what is so necessary that, you will see a whole opposition leader or a whole president saying that I prefer to die than to lose. Saying if at all is Kemo's candidacy, even if one Gambian have to die, no, not one Gambian, that's too great. One bull or one chicken has to die for Kemo to be president, I denounce my candidacy. It's totally unnecessary. So let's be selfish in executing our duties for the Gambia. The truth is that if you want to lead by force, you don't want anyone to be there, you are not for the greater good. Because if you are for the greater good, your heart would be in the right place, and you'll understand that everything that comes in is as a result of circumstance. These people have taken the highest office here. So we as the young people, speaking on behalf of the young people, I'm appealing to their hearts to think retrospectively for what is good for us rather than for themselves. Whatever Gambia they want and whatever sacrifice that they are willing to put in, we want to inform them that we, the young people, are now ready to take this for them. And they have seen that within their parties, they cannot say that nobody is competent in their whole parties. They cannot say that. We've seen the president himself sat on TV and said that the only reason he's going to run for the third term is to save his party. If everybody wants to save your party or save your house or save your head, who's going to save the Gambia? Who's going to save the Gambia?
That's a very fundamental question. That is why I told you that most of these parties or political institutions revolve around personality. President Barrow shocked the entire nation when he said that his party is too young to die. That is why he's going to contest for 2026 presidential election. Kemo, coming back to your intention to contest, since you make announcements in February, you have not been, very active in the sense that people have not heard much from you, like the name of your political party, the objectives, who are behind you. Is this young people revolution? Because we have seen you at the gala protest, but you made it very clear that you are at that protest because you take a commitment that, if your colleague young leaders are arrested, you will be on the street to take over from them. And you did exactly that. That day, you galvanized support across the country. A lot of young people got inspired because I would say you led a non-violent protest. And the fear of many people is that anytime protests like that happen, it will normally turn violent, not from the young people, but because of the way the security handled the situation. But that day, you acted very mature. You control, the people that entrust you to lead them. So tell us, is this a party mainly composed of young people, or is across all the demographics? And do you register your political party? What is the name of your political party? Because a lot of people are, in US here, we have what we call the Green Party. And looking at Kemo, because of his consciousness of the environment, a lot of people will be like, I hope it's not going to be the Green Party of the Gambia, So tell us more about this.
Okay, so the Gambia already has a Green Party in existence. I'm not the founder. I did call them several times, but apparently it's
they have a Green Party?
Well, it's just a name. They have opened a group and a few people, who are trying to do the Green Party. So I reached out to them. They're still yet to speak to me essentially about the formation of this party. But essentially, I think we are not ready yet for a full party because we saw that there are already 20 political parties here. So rather, when I talked about forming an alliance, lots of young people reached out after my declaration to say, hey, we've also been thinking about this for a very long time. And, just because I'm alone, I don't want to go and start speaking on my own behalf because I wanted to speak for the entire youth fraternity. So there is a movement that we are forming currently, which is called the People's Movement for Change. Formerly, it started People's Movement for Change. This is a movement rather than a party. And of course, it started as the Patriotic Movement for Change. which was done by some of the young people from Citizens Alliance when there was that switch between Doctor and the guy. So I didn't want to start something new, so I joined up with them. And after joining them, we realized that some of the young people have also taken leadership position in some of the political parties. And the vision of this movement will not necessarily be just about running for office or endorsing a candidate. It's about, being a trustee, to be instrumental about forming a coalition government in the Gambia, because the people can be sure that when we, the People's Movement for Change, say something, we will do it. And if we don't do it, we want the people to pick up stones and stone us to death. That's what we are telling the people now. They need to understand that whatever this movement say that we will do, we will do. If you say that you will go into office for 2 years, and then after 2 years, there will be elections. 2 years, if there is no elections, it will not be like 3 years Jobna. 3 years Jobna was because Barrow is an elite and we understand the laws, we leave it there. But here is a decision where people can know that they can count on us. And this is where we want to take this discussion at. We want to serve as a trustee in bringing together and galvanizing a youth political participation. If any political party brings in a youth candidate, we will support this particular youth candidate. So currently, our Think and Do Tank is already operational. Yesterday, we had another meeting from our April meeting where we talked about what we call Project Gambia. And Project Gambia is actually focused on galvanizing a political change in 2026. And of course, we have put forward our 18 months timeline. The government or whoever opposition can be sure that we are coming, and never before will they see a group so organized, so ready, and so determined with the required resources, energy, and innovation to protrude through the how do they call it, the hinterlands of Kiang, Badibu, Alohare, wherever you think of, we can enter there. And the
how diverse is this group? Because this is something new. Yeah.
This group has been on for a while, and it has even been composed of former student presidents of the University of the Gambia. Wow. So now we are now on the working group phase, where we have to report back to that group, but we need to give legitimacy to the movement. This is why you haven't seen Kemo on a press conference speaking for himself and glorifying himself. I would rather speak on the voices of all the young people here in the country, rather than just making it about Kemo. This is about our collective voice. So this PMC is hoping that it will be a vetting process to see which of the young candidates can represent the Gambia. Can we give a Gambian people a chance to see their candidate, what they are going to do, the policies? So Project Gambia will elaborate on all of this, and we will speak as a united voice. We hope that after this, towards the election, we will also partner with the Commission on Political Debates, because we know that our elders do not go for debates right now. So I'm eager to see someone to come and debate Kemo Fati. In fact, I'm giving an open call to Dr. Cisse, Esafal, Adama Barrow, and lawyer Useru Dabo, all combined, for us to have a public debate and see who is actually, fit to run the country. And maybe
the old guards have experience and they are doyens in politics. So you're going to a debate. So for those tuning in, this is the final take, and my guest, Kemo, a youth political leader, is calling on the opposition parties, leaders to come and debate, because Kemo and a group of young people are forming a movement that will likely change the dynamics in the upcoming election. So, Kemo, what is the modus operandi of this organization? How do you intend to change the dynamics in Gambian politics? Because you don't want to register a political party, but you want to have a movement that will be a game changer. Is this movement going to endorse people or political parties ahead of election?
This movement is going to support any and every political party that has a youth candidate. And when I say a youth, it's between 18 to 35. But we are asking all those out of that age bracket, the elderly people, to support and trust in the youth that we can do this. So this is where I'm talking from. If 70% of this country is youth, Seni, I think we should be governed by a young person. So if President Barrow, as part of Project Gambia, we are urging the incumbent to actually resign by the end of the term and actually give Gambia her true self back to the youths, and he will be recognized in history. And we, the young people, for posterity's sake, we will say that President Barrow gave the Gambia back to the youth. But if he doesn't, we can assure him and every other person who is above this age bracket to let you know that the youth of the Gambia are ready this time around. And this time we want you to hear us. We are no longer negotiating with you. And what I'm saying might be very bold and proclaimed, but we leave it in the hands of God and in the minds of the youth, because more and more these young people are graduating from universities. They can no longer be brainwashed by the systems that exist. So the Gambia is changing slowly. They need to see this, they need to recognize it, and they need to work with us rather than working against us. If Kemo is asking for a youth candidate, that should call for all these leaders of opposition to sit together and give Kemo a youth candidate. If they fail to give the PMC a youth candidate, it doesn't mean that Kemo will lead the PMC. There are many competent young people in PMC. People like, I would even, first of all, in fact, if you ask Kemo alone, like what hurt me some time back was the fact that, the president had portrayed somebody like Mahdi Jobate as a villain in this country, an enemy of the state. Like, so far I've been concerned throughout my activism career, this is one man who has stood for humanity, and no one was here to defend that man. So when I saw that, I realized that, okay, we need to really actually know our people, understand what kind of Gambia that people want, so that we can truly give them that. So young people are definitely ready, and they are ready for a change. And these leaders must understand that. If not, they will see a completely different dynamics in this politics. Nowadays, we don't have to run everywhere to get our voices heard. The telephone is the only factor of production young people need. With it, they can get jobs. Now we've been able to reach the women rice fields farmers through their WhatsApp forums. Farmers and all other people have WhatsApp forums. So this dissenting voice of young people will continue to reach the people. In fact, the fight that we will put on this show will probably be more worse than the fight that Fatu Show put on Yaya Jammeh. Trust me. Let them understand that this is not a walk in a cake. We will put in every energy, every last inch to awaken the minds of the citizenry to buy the ideals of what the young people are saying. Competence must be valued in public office, and public office is not a prize to be won. It is sacred trust. Today, if Lawyer Dabo sits at that office, believe me, say, I cannot say much. I would have to respectfully go check him and respectfully advise. But if Seni sits at the State House today, if I'm coming for you, it's not going to be polite. It's not going to be respectful.
It will be different. Absolutely.
Yes, I can call your name.
Absolutely.
I can say what I want to say. I can hold you to account. But in our culture, you know that it is not correct for Kemo Fati to go and tell Lawyer Usainu Dabo how things are supposed to run or what.
Because our culture taught us to respect the elders.
So this is what I want them to give us now as the new Gambia. If they put anyone there, any youth there, say, you can be sure that the Gambia will go. There will be no more corruption of us running. There will be no wastage of public funds, because they will be held accountable at every square inch by either us. So this is what PMC will seek to establish to solve those systemic challenges that have been lingering in our government affairs for far too long. And most importantly, if you look at even PMC, we are now, it's like we're trying to build something that will last here for generations, something that will eventually culminate into a political party. And the fact that we have a strong base, and starting with the very essence of engaging, rather than coming to challenge, we are engaging. Our wars have been peaceful. We have been trying to seek unity in the Gambia. Why do we need 20 political parties in a place where we have less than 1 million voters? President Barrow won with 51 or 53% of the population. That means if I get 300,000 votes, I'm eligible to become president. My friend, in a constituency in Nigeria, 5 million votes, you still may not be able to win an ordinary districts. And this should make us realize that this should change. If I, Kemo Fati, today win the elections with 53% saying, put this on record and record it just in case whenever I become president. If I win with 53%, I will not run this country unless and until 80% of this country is behind me. That is the time that I will take up the baton of leadership, knowing fully well I've got the support of the citizenry, I've got the speed required to do. Solo Sandeng died with electoral reforms on his banner, saying, and until today, we have the same electoral systems there. A man who laid down his life, and until today, we have no respect for the amount of bravery and courage that he did. That should be a big, profound thing for us.
And to review or, repeal those draconian electoral laws. Many thanks, Kemo. Kemo, this is a young, people-driven political movement. Do you in any way draw inspiration from our neighbors, because recently we have seen Sonko Jamoy Faye combination. These have galvanized Senegalese youths from all walks of life to come and back these two young people. And today they're making tremendous, changes in the socio-economic trajectory in Senegal. Are we seeing a similar a leadership in Gambia? Should young people be given opportunity to lead? Because most of the time we will argue that Gambia is not ready for a woman president. Gambia is not ready for a youthful president. Is it time now? Is the country prepared for a youthful president? Because history has taught us that when Jammeh came into power, he was just 29 years old. A lot of Gambians came out to support him because they were like, he's very young, fresh from the military, but later, 20 years, 22 years down the line, Jammeh become the Africa's most brutal dictator. With that past experience, Gambians are still saying, should we give young people like Kemo, who is probably 32 years or who is probably 29 years old, to lead a country of 2.5 million? Are we ready for a youthful president, come 2026?
Well, I think that the Gambia is more than ready for a youthful president come 2026. In fact, the Gambia is ready for the youngest head of state on this planet, be it Kemo Fati, or be it Muhammad Lamin Senekan, or be it Omar Malmo Jr., be it Talib Ahmed Bensouda, be it Bakari Baji, be it even Dr. Cisse themselves. I'm calling on all those people who think that they are competent. Come down here and let's debate the trajectory of our nation. Let's work together as our brother's keeper and put the Gambia on the trajectory. We don't have to fight if we all have the same intention. Every political party is here for the betterment of the country. So saying me, I always look at this from a human perspective. We can talk about our politics all we want, but I kind of now feel that politics is now an investment in the Gambia. All these parties you see is about joining the other party so they can have a position, so they can go. That should stop. That is not a politics that is going to work. So if you are establishing a party, make sure that you have the genuine intention to help, and that should mean that you should work. You should be able to work collaboratively with people. You cannot come and say your idea is the only good idea. Let's co-create the Gambia we want together. This is what we are saying. So essentially, we are ready for a new Gambia. We have been ready for a new Gambia. In fact, since the moving of Jammeh, I forgot about politics. We've been busy building the Gambia. So when people say Gambia, I was like, yeah, we're trying. But later on, I realized that, okay, the Gambia that we are voting for is slowly drifting away. And this is why we say, no, let's take up the spaces and bring back, put the Gambia on trajectory. We will not now sit only with rhetorics. We will now do something. Before, you cannot participate in politics. People will tell you, like, for example, my father has always been against politics. He doesn't like going against a sitting president. Yeah. Now, I explained to my mother, who's also talking about Mandinka, they will tell you, Mansa, Moni Mansa Buka Fenke. So I try to explain to them that we need to decolonize our minds, that there is Mansa now. There is no more Mansa.
Yeah, that you can challenge Mansa, anyhow, if he's not doing if he's not doing the right thing,
So I'm saying that now we have to understand that Mansa is just an ordinary servant that has been empowered by us, the citizenry, to do what we want. As a matter of fact, you talked about the protest. When I went on the protest, when President Barrow came into power by 2016, when I drive around the country, I see a billboard that says, with President Barrow's face, and it's like, with this new dispensation, power resides in the people. See, believe me, if you read something every day, you see it, you believe it. So me, while I was at the protest, I even forgot the fact that I was a presidential candidate. I based it solely on the fact that they said power belongs to the people. So we, the people, when we want to do something, why do they have to come and show us power? This was my only rationale for saying, no, not in this Gambia. This would be the last Gambia where people will be threatened or people will be stopped doing anything. So we have to rise up and demand this as young people or as ordinary citizens saying, if we don't do this, I think that it's a recipe for failure. And what I also realized that we don't participate as young people. I will sit here and say beautiful words. Tomorrow, somebody else will come on this show. He will also say words. The same person will be seen countering me, like how we see two brothers countering each other on a position which is to be occupied by their elder. So even those two people there, they all know that their elder is not supposed to occupy now. He's old. But who am I to go and tell them that? How many thousands of people are in that party who all know the truth and nobody wants to say anything? And everybody's backing. And if you say something, so we will keep quiet. But we, the young people, we will now take up our own ways and get this working, because we need to show people that unity is possible. And if unity is not something that is seen in these parties that are leading us, well, it's time that people also see another choice. People see another difference, especially from its young people that they have trusted. And this is where we are solely relying it on. We are purely Gambian based, like we are purely doing this for the interest of the country, not ourselves. So me, Kemo, in as much as I want to run against Dabo and Barrow, if they are running, I just want them to simply recognize this and just calmly step down so that I can be able to support another young person who they have brought forward so that we can give our democracy a chance and test it sailing. This is not hard to ask. But if they insist on getting to this power themselves, believe me, they would end up finding a very disappointing results. I may be small in Gambian politics to give a prediction. Maybe we need to find the gurus like Saint Matijau to come and give you the numbers and all these complexities. But I work on faith, and I see that, our country is sinking. We need to collectively work together more than ever, seeing a divided world. Let's think of a scenario in Gambia when the ships don't sail, the planes don't fly, and the cars don't move. We have nothing but each other and harnessing the power of our soils to feed us. Saying 300,000 metric tons of rice, we cannot produce this. This can be produced in less than 100 hectares of land, and we have more than
we have arable land. I come from a community. I came from a farming community in Nyame, Kudang. We have abundant land, and then CRR alone, my region, is the breast basket of the Gambia. When you go to Jahal Pachar, Jahal Pachar alone can feed the entire country. But with right investment, with only right investment, which the government is not doing right now, and I think young people like you who want to change the dynamics should also campaign on policies like that, and so at least we have an agriculture based nation that can feed the country, and at the end of the day export to neighboring countries, like how China and India is feeding other nations. Kemo, we will take a quick break, and when we come back, we will continue the discussion on your environmental right work in the country.
Tune into the final take with MK Mariner every Saturday on the Alcamba Times and experience. Tune into the final take with MK Mariner every Saturday on the Alcamba Times and experience extensive conversations on a variety of topics, including national and international headlines, breaking issues, and major developments in politics, business, innovation, science, and sports, along with inspiring stories and expert analysis to provide a comprehensive understanding of the news.
Welcome back wherever you're joining us. This is the final take with me, Seni Marina. In the studio today is a special guest, Mr. Kemo Fati, who declared his intention to contest for the presidential elections in the country. Kemo is also a very prominent youth leader and a conservationist. Kemo, moving forward, what role do you believe youth-led organizations like your own Green of Gambia can play in shaping a new generation of politically engaged citizens?
Well, Green Up Gambia is very much apolitical. We are focused on protecting this country's future with regards to natural resources, and as well as incentivizing farmers, helping communities to adapt to the harsh impacts of climate change. I mean, in the Gambia here, our priority is on adapting to the impacts of climate change, because there is little that we can do in terms of mitigation. But climate is affecting various things. It affects everything in our life. Therefore, it is a very important and crucial sector that if we want to have a livable planet, we want to have functioning societies, this is something that we need to really look into. This is what takes our dignity away from us. In the Gambia here, key challenges that affect everything shaping livelihoods, political decision will be desertification and drought, salt intrusion. And, these vices are really, robbing people from their dignity. We've seen thousands of young people. As a matter of fact, Sani, an interesting statistics is that in 2012, 8,000 Gambians had filed for asylum in Italy alone. This is only fueled by this particular crisis that we are facing. And for Green Up Gambia's role is actually to inspire, to awaken the minds of people, and also get communities to act. When you talk about inspiring action, nobody is going to come out from an organization or from abroad to come into your communities and do what needs to be done. It should be done by the people themselves, and this is what we have been trying to do. So in the past, over the past 8 to 9 years, we worked together with an organization called Climate Watch the Gambia. And by then, this was one of the only organizations that has been, known to talk about climate change. And in fact, we saw that climate education was a little bit obsolete in schools. Like, students still believe that the ozone layer was still the problem of climate change. So there was more awareness and more education needed even before going into the climate action. So this actually led to the Gambia, developing several key documents, from climate visions to adaptation strategies. So the Gambia is a very climate conscious nation if you look at our policies and our documents. But when it comes to, having to follow what our document says, this becomes the challenge. And this is where the work of Green Up Gambia has been very much instrumental. As a matter of fact, we have been deeply inspired by the work of President Jawara, who has declared the Banjul Declaration to protect the Gambia's flora and fauna close to 50 years now. So this document, we saw that it was almost becoming so cold. So we had to make sure that these things are enforced and that, people pay heed to their environmental responsibilities. And this way, it will help greatly because we've seen incidences where people have been killed for natural resource problems. We've seen incidences where, for example, what I mean is the
human rights.
Yes, and then we've seen, Banjul that is already at risk. We're taking, sand away from the sea. So mostly, ordinary people, even probably assembly members, would not know what the consequences of that would be. So without environmental organizations like Green Up Gambia bringing it to light and making sure that there's education, even the policymakers to be properly incentivized so that they can take the right decisions, that way we are not faced with a doomsday scenario. So this has been, some of the loopholes that Green Up Gambia has been trying to, really tackle. It's basically on the mindset, the awareness, and the education. But, we help communities rather than becoming communities. We are not doing it as in we will plant the trees for you, but rather we talk about ways that these trees can be planted by the people who live in those very communities, protected so that it can, we plant today so other hands may harvest. So this has been the backdrop behind Green Up Gambia, shaping participation, community participation, and also we are not also just focused nationally and locally. We've also participated in various international forums and various multilateral discussions from the UNFCCC to the UNCCD and as well as the UNCBD conventions. Those are part of the Rio conventions to help protect this planet. So this has been, really a great journey for us and a learning curve as well to be able to participate in shaping the future of this planet.
Okay, absolutely. Great job out there, Kemo. I follow a couple of your environmental works back home in the Gambia. Kemo, we all know the Gambia faces a very significant environmental challenges. From deforestation to waste management. Can you highlight the most present environmental issues the country is grappling with today, and how do organizations or individuals like you, help mitigate those environmental issues, either by holding the government account or by influencing the policy directions of environmental issues in the Gambia?
So, Seni, I think that the issues that are affecting the Gambia are manifold, and some of them are actually very much scary. You can remember the graveyard next to the sea in Banjul when you're going to
Yes.
Banjul.
Yeah. The
So that,
Christian, is it the
yeah, the
Christian
Christian
cemetery?
graveyard. So we should
Yeah.
understand that the sea level is almost at that graveyard. It was the
Wow.
National Assembly in 2002 that approved a $200 million budget to actually push the sea backwards.
Yeah,
So
to
what we
push
are
it.
seeing, yes, is an artificial, beach that we have created so that the water does not destroy crucial infrastructures like the road and the graveyard that is opposite Gambia High School around that end. People would be in cars before and will get, water of the waves hitting them from the car. So we've seen already the harsh impacts of climate change. So with a 1 meter sea level rise, we will have half of Banjul inundated. 33% of mangrove areas will
Yeah, because I read a report not long ago. They say Banjul will sink in the sense that because of the high-rise sea building.
yes.
Is that reality, or is that the effect of climate change?
That is reality, the effects of
Is
climate change indeed. Yes, this is a prediction from now to 50 years or 100 years, considering the current trend of climate change. So, Sene, let's understand what it means for climate change before we come to the Gambia. It's not the Gambia causing it per
okay?
se, but this is as a result of the global inaction that we are seeing. We know what needs to be done in terms of climate, but the biggest polluters, we are not really sticking to the commitments stipulated in the Paris Agreement thereabout. So it is not going to be long before we as humanity press the on button that commits the Arctic, the Antarctic, and Greenland to melting. Greenland and the Antarctica hold about 200 meters of sea level rise. These are big dynamics. So if we look at with the trend of CO2 pollution in the atmosphere, scientists warn that we have reached tipping point. Tipping point means that if we cross this point, it will be very difficult to reverse these changes, and then it will lead to more catastrophic changes. So this is what we are talking about in terms of Banjul. This is not 100-meter sea level rise, but just 1 meter. Half of Banjul is inundated. The mangrove areas that we used to have will go. And we ourselves, as the citizenry, we're not also helping ourselves. Right now, in Banjul, our hydrological buffers, like the Tanvi wetland, is what we are backfilling.
Yeah.
Imagine when there's excess water, where the water drains, these hydrological buffers, we are now putting sediments. Humans have moved more sediments and rocks than the entire Earth's natural processes. So this is a sobering reflection that we take a place which, takes our water when it rains, and then we put sand inside it. So at the end of the day, when it rains, now the water can no longer pass, then our whole city is flooded and crucial infrastructures get damaged. If you go to the Tanbi wetlands, what you will see would be catastrophic. And Tanbi wetlands, based on the national documents, like we say, is under the Ramsar site. It is a protected site. But you see, like I told you in the very beginning, the policy documents that we have are just gathering dust. Nobody cares about the conventions or the agreements that you are part of. It's not only Gambia, but the whole world in general. America will do the same thing, just as what the Minister of Environment will do here, to say, well, development and this climate change go hand in hand. So sometimes the activists will not know how we face these challenges, but these challenges are having future repercussions that are way worse than what we are doing at the moment. So I think a challenge of climate change is sea level rise. And then from that one, we now move to the sea level rise is also causing a secondary problem because the mouth of the River Gambia is about 13 kilometers wide. So in the dry seasons, there is no rain that pushes water to exit through the ocean. So water goes upstream, salt water moves down. So it kind of, infiltrates, it creeps in to fertile landfills, to fertile floodplains, because those floodplains is where women grow rice. So now with less rains, it becomes permanent salt, and it now takes away arable land. Hypersalinity is becoming a problem. Before, people could grow rice from Albreda all the way down to Kuntawood, but now those areas are
Because
almost
of salt water, intrusion.
So now,
So Kemo, how can we address this? Because this is really threatening lives and livelihood, because our young women, our older women, rely on this to make living. So how do we protect them, from their livelihood being destroyed because of climate change and irresponsible behavior of some people?
Yes, just to complete the challenges, I've just mentioned two of these, which is the sea level rise that leads to salt intrusion, and we are also looking at coastal erosion. Saying when you were a boy, you used to play at the beach. You've seen how the beach used to be, but now when you go, you can see where the tides are. It is eating more and more, coming inside. So these are problems that we are facing. In Bakote, my home, where I live, we have a problem of waste management. So we have leachate going down to our water table, contaminating our groundwaters. So we have waste problem in the country, which is affecting not just most of the urban centers and polluting our river bodies. So we are actually seeing multiple climate crises, and it can be solved because the Gambia is only 11,000 square kilometers. I remember there was a politician that says that he could fix Gambia in 90 days, and everybody started to shout and complain. But when you think about it, 11,000 square kilometers is about 2.7 million acres. In Malaysia, there is a farm that is 4.7 million acres. In China, there are farms bigger than the size of Israel.
Just a mere farm.
Yeah, just a mere farm. So we should not complain. The Gambia is not really a country. We are just a home. This is our home. This is why I doubt when people keep fighting against each other. For the whole past 5 years, if you add our entire national budget for the past 5 years, it's 2.7 billion US dollars. That's what we ate as a nation for the past 5 years combined. So this is not significant in any way. We need to think objectively as a people. These things can be solved. One, we've seen communities building blockages for salt intrusion. Communities will come together to build dikes. They will also talk about how to, plant mangroves in places that are their hydrological buffers so that it can hold, the influx of water into the floodplains. We've seen also communities themselves getting up to plant trees in their communities so they can stabilize their microclimate. Because for the Gambia, with the land size, even if we mitigate all of our carbon sources, it will not be enough to make a difference globally in terms of climate change. We are so small. Even the African continent itself puts less emissions out there. But our things should be on protecting our biodiversity. And this is where our investment should go in. This is where we need to support businesses that are climate friendly and they are eco-friendly to be able to solve the problems. I mean, one good thing that Jame has done is to stop the use of plastic bags. You can remember those plastic bags were flying.
They banned them,
I just wish that those days Jame had extended this to entirely single-use plastics. Today, Gambia would have been very eco-sane. So sometimes it is
eco-friendly,
Yeah, so it's important to say we can solve these things, but we need policy backing. The National Environment Management Act is the supreme law in terms of environmental issues. But when you look at the law itself in terms of waste management, it is devoid. Just recently is when they kind of I don't know if it's the bill has been read. That is the waste bill. So these are sound environmental instruments that will help, to kind of create green jobs, restore communities, and go into the circular economy approach. So for a Gambia, it is very easy for us to do this because we are pretty small. We are very, very, very small. And we know everyone is just 2 million people. Everybody knows everyone. You can drive from Basse to Banjul in 6 hours. So essentially, the instruments for progress is lying down there. It just needs to be operationalized. In fact, the Gambia's approach to climate change includes equity and inclusion. On top, we are guided by 11 principles when it comes to climate change mitigation and adaptation. And equity and inclusion are on top of it. So based on policy documents, we've also mainstreamed climate change into the national, every sector of planning and development in the Gambia, including school curriculums. So essentially, there's been a lot that's been done, and definitely we can be able to protect our small, fragile ecosystem, but it will require all hands on deck. This requires, communities and government working together, in a systematic way to solve these crises. They can't just work in silos, because you will not go to a farmer and tell him not to cut down a tree when he has no other livelihood venture. So this is some of the things that people don't see when it comes to environment. The people who are facing the harshest consequences of this are the people who are contributing the very least. This is why it is an injustice that needs to be dealt with. So sometimes people can complain on the farmers, but they shouldn't, because these are the victims already. Don't cut down the trees. If they don't cut the trees, what are the alternatives? Are we investing enough in these alternatives to give people an alternative livelihood venture rather than just one thing and one thing only? In 2011, the government declared a 70% crop failure. So in the Gambia, we only need the rain to skip one year, not even two, for there to be total famine. So if there is no rain in the Gambia for 1 year, Seni, it will be a humanitarian crisis never before felt. It might be similar to that of, what happened in Ethiopia, because 70% crop failure is a big disaster. We see in 2011 clearly. That was a stark warning what could happen if we don't put our irrigation systems in check. And one thing that must change in order to avert this crisis should be our take on water, Seni. We, the Gambians, do not take water seriously.
We abuse it.
Zero, that is the day that we will understand that we should have protected our underground water. Everyone is digging boreholes at a very rapid rate, and this is water that have been stored over millennia. So it will take the same amount of time to refill. And then we take our surface water, which is the rain and all these things, to be useless. We never really harvest any rainwater. All the rainwater that comes in beats us and washes our topsoil and dumps it into the riverbed, further polluting the riverbed. So there is a serious ecological crisis that is coming if we don't harvest the water. Let's not allow a single drop of rain. Let's not allow all the flooding that comes in to just pour into the Atlantic Ocean like that. We should be having enough water from December to December, and we should be growing from December to December. Sometimes I can make a bold pronunciation. I hope that this doesn't take my video out of context, but I think 90 days is too much. I think within 30 days, we can find a solution to making Gambia an eco-friendly nation 100%. A key start would be one. For example, if all the livestock owners in the Gambia agree to sign a presidential decree or a bylaw to never have any roaming animals in the Gambia. Saying in 30 days, one rainy season, we will restore the entire Gambia in its full entirety. Or if we can buy out all the cattle in the Gambia, saying we will not cry anymore of forest or food production. So we know the solution. 90 days is too much. Give Kemo 30 days. And I'll put forward, a Gambia that is on a pathway to restoration, a Gambia that is clean and green, and a Gambia that, really thrives on its own productive base. We need to increase our agricultural productivity, and growing 500,000 tons of rice will not require 100,000 hectares of land. And we have 400,000 hectares lying down useless. So Gambians, let's not
absolutely. Give Kemo 30 days, and then he's going to revolutionize.
I wanted to beat the 90-day record. I was so jealous of the 90-day discussion across the whole Gambia. I was like, what are they saying? They said someone.
I know that's the gap leader Bakili for you, who said he's going to develop the Gambia in 90 days. And here comes another potential young leader who is seeking Gambians vote for the election. Give him 30 days and Kemo will change the narrative. Kemo, we are almost at the tail end of this interview, but I have a few questions to ask you before we move on. Illegal logging and exploitation of endangered species are major concerns in the Gambia. How do you plan to hold the government accountable and stakeholders while promoting sustainable resource management?
I cannot hold the government accountable anymore. Believe me, I have single-handedly, of course, with support, arrested about 28 containers. If you go to my Twitter, it's pinned there, of legal wood. And then the government made a whole show out of it.
We at Alcamba Times are currently in legal problem because of this illegal logging we reported.
You accuse the Minister of Corruption and you find yourself in legal battle. You saw me accuse the Minister of Corruption and I'm still here doing my thing.
I know that might be a deal, but tell me, is this still a major challenge in the country, and how do we make sure that we stop it? Because this is causing a lot of deforestation. You go to Kiang, they are losing their wetlands, they are losing their forest cover because of illegal cutting down of trees for economic purpose.
Yes, Seni, I think this is something that sometimes I don't want to fight with them on this. I want them to really understand what's going on, because mostly this timber that they are logging, when I caught those 28 containers, they made a whole, public show. Like there was news. They said perpetrators will be brought to justice. Saying, I've been sitting there 2 weeks watching those containers. They nicely took the containers and put them on those ships in front of my eyes. So in order to stop timber logging in the Gambia, maybe this should be
So
on
where
every
are these
news.
containers? Where are these containers where are they heading to? These containers of
Heading to
illegal
China
timber.
markets. There's a demand for hognu, that redwood in China. It is one of the most expensive wood.
Yeah,
So
rosewood,
these things are shipped, and there's a net balance of more than $400 million between our trading partners and what has been declared to live here. Jame alone, $118 million US dollars. An estimate of 1.6 million trees have been cut from the southern part of Senegal coming down. The forest in Senegal is what brings rainfall to the entire Sahel region. So we have to understand that this timber that they're doing, what the government of the Gambia did is that they just followed the same looting patterns of the previous administration. They came, they saw that, look, this thing is $1 million business, and we still have the same
and
things
they
going on.
exploit it.
Come on. Even you saying, when you come, you see that you're making $5 million from this place. You will not just stop it. So the company of Jame, Westwood, is replaced by Janyar. I don't know who's Janyar recently. If you ask the previous, I complained about the changing of permanent secretaries. I think they were doing that purposely to stop me from finding out. So if I get a little bit closer to understanding what's going, if I go there the next day, I find a new PS who comes with innocence. So that guy will propel this for a little bit, and then somebody else will come in. So essentially, it is systematic. They get their cuts. Even the Senegalese authorities get their cut. So it is a genocide.
They are all
it is an
complicit.
ecological suicide. Yes, it is an ecological suicide. We know the going rates for even the police. When you find them on the streets, how much do you bribe the police at the checkpoint? Seni, this timber thing that Gambia and Senegal has been talking about since 1988, let me call both leaders. Let's say Basiru Jamai and Usman and Adama Barrow and all of these places, or even Macky Sall. Me, Kemo Fati, Senegal has not exported wood since 1988. I, Kemo Fati, could stop wood export today. I don't need any resource for it. I only need complete authority to stand at Denton Bridge. That's only one port in the Gambia. Where else is wood going to pass? Allow me the power to scan every container saying not one wood will leave this country. So when I see them making all these big talks as government, I know that they are just not serious about doing anything about it. So imagine me saying that in 30 days, we can stop wood export in totality. So we are right by doing this. It only requires one person to inspect every container that leaves Denton Bridge. Gambia is so easy. But you have gone and seen that even at the Department of Forestry, Seni, you will have a document that says re-exportation of imported timber on a government letterhead. So me, I wonder, when you are importing timber, where does it pass through? Timber that comes from Guinea-Bissau, not Senegal.
And I understand
Where
that the
does
government,
pass
in fact, put a moratorium on the exporting this timber, rosewood outside the country. But as you said, still the practice, continue, unabated.
Yes, yes, yes. Seni, there's a lot of money on it. If you check my video, which that 28 containers was, I put there, who is behind this trade? That is $1 million question. You never know who is definitely behind this trade. That's a closely guarded secret. But if we know the owners of Jannar company and see who splits this, you can also read the Malagan report that has been done. And also there's a report on EIA, which is called Cashing In on Chaos. So there's chaos in. So lots of people are cashing in. Wood is a lot of business. You will fill a container for less than $3,000, and the export value will be almost, $15,000 to $25,000. So this is like triple or quadrupling of the profits you're making, and people don't care about this. So this is why even talking about this timber is a lot of livelihood ventures that we are looking at from. So this is something that I think the government can stop. But why they are not stopping it, that's something I don't know. It can be stopped in one day, but they make it look almost impossible and make too much talks around it. And this is why sometimes I think it's something that they know, but they decided to do it. And for me, it's always good to come clean. Rather than staying in those multilateral agreements that we are the best country living to the Paris Agreement, let's just be Donald Trump and be honest. Hey, this is an economic thing for us. We don't want to be part of the Paris Agreement. That way, I will not even be protesting against the president because I will know that the Gambia has withdrawn from the Paris Agreement. It's no longer part of the Ramsar site. And I will say, okay, you can even go and sell Tanwi wetland. Let's take the river Gambia and backfill it. We don't want the river anymore. If you like, let's pump out all the water and sell.
And Abuko, let's take the Abuko nature reserves.
So long we say we are going to protect our children's future, let's act by it. Let's act by it. We should honor our words. Let us renew those promises that we have made to ourselves at the time of independence as enshrined in our national anthem. So this is something that we need to know.
Many thanks, Kemo. This is a very interesting conversation, and topics like this are hardly discussed in the mainstream media. That's why I bring you on board, not only to talk about your political ambition, but also to enlighten our audience about the impact of these environmental issues unfolding right in our eyes in the country. Kemo, vision for 2026 and beyond. If elected in 2026, what would be your top 3 priorities for addressing environmental challenges and empowering the youth in the country?
Well, priority 1 will be food self-sufficiency. We will feed the Gambia in about 5 years. By the end of the 5th term, we will have at least 100,000 hectares on cultivation. No more rice will come from outside again. And of course, we will empower almost every smallholder farmer. That would be a 1 hectare, maximum benefit per hectare, rather than maximum value per hectare. And that is the second part. The third part will be to revitalize the state of the soils. Our principal job within the first 5 years should be to boost the productive basis of our economy, not just to, kind of promise big things and technology, but the basics, Our food should not be, we spend so much money on food. So that's not something that we want to continue with. Independence means having what you can get for yourself, living within your means for 365 days. If we are able to do this, believe me, I think this would create a lot of change. And of course, young people need to be empowered, Sami. We cannot just be, a statistics, an empty hello statistics that they continue to say, we're empowering youth, we're doing this. No, we at least, need some kind of empowerment through our initiatives, Sami. I've been in this country here working for far too long. I have never get any concrete support from the government of the Gambia. All of our supports are coming from multilateral organizations. And at the end of the day, you will have youth empowerment projects, but most of those projects, what they need, or even the investment base that they give them is next to nothing. When young people come back from back where you give them €1,000, what can €1,000 do? To go and start a business, what business are you going to start with €1,000? So these are the problems that young people are facing. You go, you give them 250,000, which cannot even buy any machine that they can use to be able to produce. If you want young people to go back to the land, give them something productive that they can be able to do this work or to be able to fend for themselves. But it will not just continue to be statistics. So as in my own self, I would put my focus solely on protecting the Gambia's ecosystem and focusing on the food self-sufficiency that we have. I don't know much about all the other sectors, but one thing I can assure the Gambian people is that we will feed ourselves and we will buy less from the outside world. The rest of the money that is there, I will depend on the finance minister to see which trajectory that we can put it on. I cannot be arrogant enough to say I know how all of these things work, even though I'm a financial analyst in the making, but I'll prefer to leave that to them and focus on the very essential issues that affect us. And that's basically what I would be looking at. But I don't want to talk about myself here because it will be a betrayal of the code of conduct of PMC. So I should not.
So bring us to speed about PMC, because in our earlier conversation you said PMC is a very diverse group of young people, and not only young people, but young leaders from across the board, from the university, from youth organizations. How do you see yourself? It's 2026. Are you changing the dynamics? And then what final advice do you have for young people to join the PMC?
As in myself, I am one of the list qualified candidates. Suñ ne ana seen degree moom si la man foofu lay génnee na because man awma degree. You know, I'm like Greta. I find no need to go into it.
No, but you are very knowledgeable you are among the most knowledgeable young people in and I know in environment. You and Omar Malmo Sambu. You and Omar Malmo Sambu are very knowledgeable in environmental science. That's why it's always great to have you guys to discuss and unpack environmental issues. But Kemo, finally, message to the young people and the goal of PMC.
Well, goal of PMC is a youth-led government, and message to the young people and the government as well would be in the very profound words of our national pledge, that it is the combination of government and people working together in unison and harmony. That will lead us to the progress that we all desire. We must stand together as one people with one goal and move forward as one nation. But if we insist on pursuing on our personal goals without keeping our collective objectives and responsibilities in mind, then indeed we shall be divided, we shall fall. Let us renew those promises that we have made to ourselves at the time of independence as enshrined in our national anthem. Deka bi Gambia bi fi ñun ñepp ko bokka. Stop glorifying yourselves and let's work together in good heart and in good spirit for what is good for our people everywhere. It is not one man's show, it is not anybody's show. Anybody can lead this country. They need the support of the citizenry. Let's stop creating parties and further dividing our country. People might think that's a healthy part of a democracy, but that's where you have millions of people. Here we have less than 1 million votes. Where are we fragmenting all of these things going to? Our focus shouldn't be on elections. Our focus should be on feeding the people. Believe me, people in the urban areas, yen hamulen sona bu nekk si biir dëkk bi. Waaye soo demee si villages si nit ñi fa dëkk, they know the hardships. They know how hot it is. Ask the women who are there, who work hard tirelessly in those rice fields. So it's not just about our rhetorics here. There are people and their everyday circumstances are getting hard. So we need to put our heads together, our knowledge together to solve those. Let's minus ourselves from the equation for the Gambia to leapfrog to its determined destiny. Without that, we will never move. If anybody always have the intention that it is me, or you are looking at the interests of a few or whatsoever, believe me, we will keep rotating here and we will become a failed nation. Now Absolutely. Is the time that we have to cleanse our hearts, work together, build that unbroken chain of human cooperation. Nothing should stop Barrow and Dabo from reconciling and close down NPP. I'm sure. Let me just give a futuristic thing so that people think I'm definitely not okay by imagining this. I think that NPP, UDP, and PDOIS and all these other parties should all come together, dismantle their parties, and let's start working on individual candidates for the Gambia's sake. Let the Gambia become one people. It's the people versus the people that we are voting for. This politics is not working for us. It's going to further divide us. We will continue to fight, and we are all small. Somebody is married to my sister. I know somebody's cousin here. It doesn't work for our kind of culture and lifestyle. I have started to have problems even with my auntie on when I spoke about this KMC thing with people of my cousins, my inside family members. I was so angry that I even write a letter to them with my signature. And I imagine that if this is the kind of politics that we are doing, then we are a doomed country. So that taught me a lesson, which I want to share with these people. If something is going wrong, we're seeing problems, let's avoid it and become one. Let's not take sides. Like, for example, sometimes I wake up and I see that people are taking sides even in war. I'm like, they don't know what's going on, I'm not supporting Israel or Iran. Get yourselves together and let's fix humanity. So the same applies for these parties. NPP and UDP, get yourselves together and let's work for the betterment of the Gambia. Stop this war and all these small talks. It's not necessary. You don't deserve the attention. The attention is for the women who are facing the harsh impacts of climate change. So enough of the faces of the politicians, and let's put in more of the problems of the ordinary citizens and on the daily life. We don't want to hear about the cost of cement. We want to hear about the cost of living, daily bread. Cement is for rich people. Let them suffer. No problem. Let cement go to 500. We don't care. We are not building cement houses. We are poor people. So what we look for is when we wake up is daily bread. So people need to understand this. Walk down to Tipagaras at 3 a.m. You see women from their gardens with all these big food supplying our food systems. When these women are waking up 2 a.m., when do they sleep? They close, they go back, and they also do the work, the cooking and all of those things. So those things need to be looked into. This country does not revolve around us who are always on the media with our faces here. No, there are real people with real problems there. Let's make that our priority. That is my message.
Yeah, wonderful message for those tuning in. That's Kemo Fati, a young leader who just declared his intention to run for the office of the president. And Kemo is now working with a group of young people under the banner PMC to galvanize support ahead of this. Kemo believed that there should be dismantling of those bureaucratic political parties, and then we focus on the youth-led political parties. Until then, I'm your host, Seni Marena. We'll come your way next Saturday with more and more exciting programs and special guests. Kemo, many thanks for joining me live from Banjul. I thought initially you will not be able to make this interview. That's why we run a little bit late into the program, but I'm glad you find time to join this brilliant conversation. Once again, many thanks for joining me to discuss these important environmental and political issues back home in the Gambia.
Always a pleasure, Seni. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kemo. Thank you.
Tune into the final take with MK Marina every Saturday on the Alcamba Times and experience extensive conversations on a variety of topics, including national and international headlines, breaking issues, and major developments in politics, business, innovation, science, and sports, along with inspiring stories and expert analysis to provide a comprehensive understanding of the news.